G'day and welcome to Cuba to Rio. I'm Matt Scollay, and this week we finally make inroads to that gorgeous city of Rio de Janeiro, and this is some of the background music to this amazing city that's got culture pouring out of every orifice, and a number of those orifices happen to be musical instruments. It's absolutely everywhere. I'm loving this town. It's so good. Anyway, this week we kick off the trip quite a far way up north, in the middle of Brazil. You could turn the Brazil nation on a pinwheel, and that pinwheel would be the state of Tocantins, which is right smack bang in the middle. And I kicked off the week by doing a road trip there with a pair of strangers before then making my way finally down towards Rio de Janeiro. And yeah, that's what you got in store for you, and enjoy. Brasilia is Brazil's version of Canberra. It was an idea that was sparked in the 1950s, and they decided to relocate the capital from Rio de Janeiro to the centre of the country. And they started a district federal like DC in the States, and basically built the city in 3 years. And it was adopted as the capital in 1960, so it's as old as my dad, this place. And basically they got this guy, Oscar Niemeyer, to do the design for the city. And so the city it's like Canberra, but with less amazingly less soul. It looks like from the topographical sort of, or a cartographic perspective, like a 747 has crashed into an artificial lake, because that's the design Oscar Niemeyer decided for the city. So it's got these two huge wings like sweeping back, full of these massive arterial roads that feed into the centre of the city, and then there's the fuselage of the aircraft as it plows into this artificial lake, is where all the cathedrals, the Senate and the Congress, and all the sort of crux of power is in the fuselage of the aircraft. And it's all divided into sectors: hotel sector, shopping sector, residential, retail, diplomatic. Everything is planned. It's not the greatest place in Brazil. And the only thing I got to visit of Brasilia was this thing that's playing in the background now. It is the fountain that is in front of Brazil's massive TV antenna. And never has TV had such a central place to a city. I think it's partly due to the fact it was a brand new thing in the 1950s when it was being designed. So the TV antenna is smack bang in the centre of the entire thing, right next to the National Stadium. And the architecture of these stadiums and monuments like the National Cathedral and stuff is rather impressive, even from a distance. It's I don't know the style because I don't know shit about architecture, but they were impressive to look at. But the main thing about Brasilia was I met two people that I would spend the next 4 days with, and that's where we're headed to now. So I would have been in Brasilia for Dilma Rousseff's impeachment vote, which would have been absolutely fascinating. The political charge around the capital would have been great. But instead, I met these two people getting drunk at a hostel and decided I'd join them on a road trip north. And where we went was... they were just two strangers. I know them now as Jesse and Carmen. Jesse's a Canadian who makes money from selling video game packets to mobile gamers at a profit, and Carmen is a school teacher from Brisbane, Australia. And we headed 800 kilometres north on our first day to Palmas after picking up the hire car, which was some $30 a day. I believe it was a lovely little Ford KT that barely fitted my giant pack and some small bags of Jesse and Carmen's. But yeah, we headed north along these lovely straight freeways and highways of Brazil, going through country that didn't look like it belonged to Brazil at all. Every time we went into a different landscape, it just looked like somewhere else in the world. And because there was 2 Australians in the car, often those places were Australian landscapes. And so on the outskirts of Brasilia there, you find sort of alpine New South Wales, lovely, great big rolling hills, low shrubbery, granite boulders sticking out of the ground everywhere. And there's termite mounds after that. It sort of gets a Western Queensland, sort of Central Australia feel, and that's helped by the red dirt that's absolutely everywhere. And then the other natural monuments that are around the place are very reminiscent of other things, like there's a large sort of Grand Canyon-y looking site off to the east of the main freeway north of Brasilia, and that's quite spectacular, but none of it looks like Brazil. None of it was uniquely Brazilian. It just always harkened back to somewhere else. Oh, that's the Kimberleys. Oh, that looks like Central Australia or Kings Canyon. Oh, I was in the Pantanals. That's basically a giant kakadu. So we've been waiting for Brazil to kick up something unique, and we were hopefully going to get there. What we were looking for on this trip was a national park called Jalapão National Park, some 400 kilometres east of the Tocantins state capital of Palmas. Palmas is 800 k's north of Brasilia, and we did that leg in one whole day. And just a side note, because cities like Brasilia and Palmas were completely designed by town planners, you get some really catchy street names like this spilling out of the GPS.
Exit the roundabout onto Quadra 804 Sul Avenida Leste Oeste 19. In 500 metres, at the roundabout, take the second exit onto Quadra 706 Sul Avenida Low 19, Quadra 806 Sul Avenida Low 19, heading to Low 19.
She just delivers every time. I was driving most of the time because Jesse and Carmen hired the cheapest hire car, and that happened to be a manual, and neither of them had any or a lot of experience driving a manual whatsoever. And so I came along and ended up in the driver's seat for probably about 30 hours over the course of this trip. But Brazil's roads are incredible. They're gorgeous strips of asphalt everywhere, but they do have their surprises. The speed bumps. We freaking hated them because they're basically ninja bumps here in Brazil, because they are the same colour as the road itself. They are not marked. There's very little signposts. Often the signs are damaged or vandalised, and so you just don't spot them, and they come out of nowhere in the middle of a highway. The other thing that we hated as well was speed cameras leaving Brasilia. They were every 2 or 3 kilometres, and you would go from 80 down to a speed of 40. And they would have it was just a hassle. But these speed bumps, one of them got us the highest moment of drama in the car. Was just after dark. On our first day, I'd been driving for about 5 hours at this stage, and we came around a truck with its headlights on and high beams on full, and there was an intersection behind it with a speed bump just buried behind this truck's lights. And we must have hit it about 80 to 60, and that contributed to an issue we had a little bit later. Our first day, however, our first pit stop was at this lovely waterfall. It was the waterfall of Roncador. It's about 10 k's out of Palmas, and I got to step behind the waterfall to make this recording, which was pretty darn cool. But in addition to that, the bushland around it, despite being dry sort of jungle, just sounded like the Australian bush. I mean, listen to this. Insane. And we headed a little further east that same day. We wanted to cover some 400 k's on that second day, but we hit this sort of road. Red dirt everywhere. It was an off-road section of the Brazilian highway. It was completely unsealed between a town called Alto Paradiso and Matador, and we did not make it between the two because I was charging along this road. We wanted to get to these sand dunes for sunset because that's supposed to be spectacular, and we hit a ditch. And I knocked the left back wheel out of alignment, and so it was going clunk, 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 clunk over the corrugations, and the corrugations were exceedingly frequent on this unpaved road. It was a real mess, and so we had to turn back and limp back to paved roads, where luckily for us, the wheel had no issues for the the 1,000 kilometres of driving to come. And it was along that 1,000 kilometres where we found this incredible place, which was utterly and uniquely Brazilian. So it managed to get its own spot in the podcast. Well, Brazil's famous for being the home of one of the world's largest rivers in the world, but it may just be the site of the world's smallest river, in fact. This is the Rio Azuis, and it's in the far southwest of this state of Tocantins. And it is 150 metres long from its source all the way down to where it meets another river downstream. And the reason it's called the Rio Azuis is because it is this crystalline blue water, which is so clear. You can see absolutely every detail on the bottom, even though it's rushing along at quite speed and causing a bit of turbulence, but it's gorgeous. Definitely the highlight of the day, and it's the only place on this whole trip we've had which has got a little bit of a tourist industry built up around it. So there's a couple of bars and a couple of hotels where you can stay around this rather spectacular but tiny corner of Brazil. Well, the sun's about an hour from setting now, and we've spent the last 2 hours here at Rio Azul, and I can say without a doubt this is in my top 10 places of this trip. It's absolutely fantastic, and the water from the source up there, which is just bubbling out from under a rock, it's transparent. It's so gorgeous, and there's these little fish that are in the water here, and they like to clean up your skin and the like. And there's some little fish that have turned into slightly bigger fish, and they nip pretty darn hard. So it's a great little swim, snorkeling around. You feel like you're sort of floating in ice. It's just amazing. The water temperature is perfect. It's got a minerally taste to it and everything, but an absolutely spectacular place. It turns out is the third shortest river in the world, by the way. Not the shortest, but it is Brazil's shortest river for sure. So yeah, a little factual correction there, but an absolutely cracking place, and only 4 hours or 5 hours drive from Brasilia, so well worth checking out if you're in this area. The sounds of the great Australian bushland, but it's not. We're in the Parque Nacional Chapada de Veradeiros. It's about some 3 hours north of Brasilia, and it's a UNESCO heritage site with a spectacular little hippie town at its gate doorstop, because there's not a lot of tourism up here. So unlike most UNESCO sites, these ones can't gouge for prices, so it's entirely free. And it's an amazing little national park. It's this dry bushland with a spectacular river flowing through it that forms some pretty great canyons up to the north, and a waterfall, 2 waterfalls that we visited today, one of 120 metres, which is pretty damn tall, and another of 80 metres, which we went swimming in. And it was a spectacular place. You swim up to the waterfall. It's an awful lot of water moving, even though it's the dry season. And then behind the waterfall there's all these sort of like 0G droplets because of all the air moving around behind there. They're all just sort of floating in the air. It was a great place to cool off, because it's baking hot out here. And the reason I forgot to record the waterfall itself, usually there'd be a nice sort of fade in, fade out of the waterfall in that piece, but we're in a friggin' rush where we've got quite a trek to get back to Brasilia. We've got to drop off the car before 5, so we'll see if we make it, because there's an awful lot of speed cameras coming into Brasilia, and we've got another 300k to go. So this is our last stop for the road trip, and then it's on to a 17-hour bus tonight to Rio de Janeiro.
When my baby smiles at me, I go to Rio de Janeiro, my mio. I go wild and then I have to do the samba and la bamba.
We're in Rio, baby. It was fantastic coming into this huge city, our third mega city of the trip. We've had Mexico City, Lima, and now Rio de Janeiro. and it does stretch out quite the way from its main sort of area with Christ glaring down on you. I did see him yesterday coming in on the bus. It was a special moment. Felt the Catholic guilt I didn't know I had. And first night in Rio, got to wander around with my fabulous couch surfing host Elvis, who's got an apartment right smack bang in the pure centre of Rio de Janeiro, and so we got to go for a wander around, rode all sorts of the public transport yesterday, came in on a bus that took some 18 hours from Brasilia, and then from there I hopped on the legacy of the Rio 2016 Games, which is a light rail transport, which is so futuristic. It has to have a motorcycle driving in front of it to remind people to get off the bloody tracks. And if that's not enough, there's also it's a pretty sexy looking train. And so the cariocas, as the people here in Rio are known, they're all standing on the tracks taking photos of this sexy looking thing from the future gliding through their city. It made for quite the juxtaposition, that train, I must say, because Rio doesn't look like Tokyo or any other super modern city, that is for sure. But today I got up at 5:15 in the morning because I had to get all the way over across town from my central location to the Olympic Park, which is where we are now, and it took all the public transport. That noise in the background, don't know if you can hear it. It's builders doing some last minute frenzied preparations for the Paralympic Games, and you'd think they would have done all the preparations for the Olympics, but no, they're still fixing up the fixing up the karaoke arenas, as they're called. There's 3 of them. The Olympic Park is very strange. There is about, I'd say, about 20 people wandering through this entire thing, and it's ghostly. I'm here for a training session to get to know my arena, which is just behind me. I'm in the handball arena for these Olympics, or the Paralympics, handball and goalball, and it's called the Arena of the Future Arena. And it's one of the sexy new buildings here. It's just across from the aquatic centre, so hopefully on my breaks I'll get to see a ton of swimming, which is what that's what I'm here for. This whole volunteering business. We'll see how that goes around my enjoyment of the Paralympic Games. But Rio de Janeiro, absolutely fantastic. There's clouds clinging to the mountains around me right now because it's quite drizzly and dreary here in Rio. But aside from that, I don't think I've been this excited to get to know a city for a long while. So let's get cracking. Even stranger than being in an Olympic park that's empty is being in a Olympic stadium that's empty. This is the Future Arena, which is a building that's it's only temporary. They're going to take it down after the games, but it's going to be turned into 4 schools somehow. I don't know, but it certainly does have its issues, the old building. I'm lodged in a room underneath here. I'm working with the sort of I'm a middleman for the data that comes in from the field. So I'm working goalball, which is it's a variation of handball where the goal spans the entire back line of the court. I will do a piece on goalball and its rules later for sure. But so I'm doing goalball, and then basically all the statistics come to us. We've got to produce paper reports because people still like reading them, and then we send them off to the media institutions and the like. It's a job that most certainly will be done entirely by a computer in the future, but for the Rio 2016 Games, I am the computer, which is terrifying. So we've got to produce 3 reports every single game: a pre-report, a mid-match report, and then a post-game report, and that includes all the stats about fouls and goals and who went on, who went off, every statistic available. But quite the incredible day. Learning the traps of the volunteer gig. It's got free food. It is a buffet, which I couldn't stop smiling. I was so happy about that. I was like, yes, I might not have to spend a single cent in this Rio city this whole time. It might be great. But yeah, there's only 3 English speakers out of the 150 volunteers that are working around this site. And I mean, the other English speakers, turns out, are all involved with the scoring and the operational side of things. So I won't have to speak a word of Portuguese these entire games, it looks like it. So yeah, it's going to be a very interesting time. And in the meantime, I've got about 6 days before the actual games kick off and my first shift kicks in. So yeah, let's go visit some of Rio before that all kicks off.
Atenção, portas se fechando.
Well, if I thought getting to the Olympics was a hassle, getting back from them was an incredible adventure, to be honest. We got to try almost every form of transport in Rio. We got to jump on the HRT, which is a fast bus that's got its own lane. We got to jump on the metro, which is brilliant. It's got the most sing-songy sellers. The entire, it's very similar to Mexico City in a way, but without the preachiness. These guys just march up and down selling beers and all sorts of things. It was really nice, and the old ladies, volunteers that I was travelling with, had never seen anything like it in their lives, and they were absolutely loving it. But then from there, we got to jump on the cable car.
It's like going skiing.
Because Rio's also got one of these, so this is this third city I know with cable cars. It's now La Paz, Sucre and Rio de Janeiro, and this one's free and gives you a great view of some favelas as you come over the hill there, approaching the harbour. And then from the harbour around to where we wanted to go, we caught the VLT, which is the Mayor's legacy project for the Rio Olympic Games. It is this hyper-modern light rail system that glides through the city centre near to where I'm staying. But then, I don't know, aside from that, I'm steadily falling in love with the character of this city. We went out last night along the Olympic Boulevard, and in the last 12 hours I've seen not one, not two, but 4 spontaneous dance parties. And one of them was this morning at 9 a.m. So I don't know if they were spontaneously dancing throughout the night, but I was on my way to the supermarket to buy some fruits and things, and there were just people jamming in the street. In addition to that, I found a little quirk of the Rio character, which takes a twist on something I've seen around all Brazil. Brazil has got these public telephone boxes with these nice domed sort of rain protectors over them. And I've seen them everywhere. They are in the most remote of Brazil's towns, these public telephone boxes. But here in Rio, they're in little clusters of 4. And I noticed on the inside of them, there's a lot of women's bottoms. And I was like, what is going on? And prostitutes put all their advertisements on the inside. So the entire thing looks like a rather adult paper mache project on the inside. It's covered in bottoms. It's brilliant. I just couldn't help but cracking up in the street when I finally realised what was going on. Copacabana Beach. Yeah, it's basically a Bondi on steroids. There's high-rise buildings pressed to within 500 metres of the shoreline. There is so many people. I've come down here on a Saturday afternoon, so that makes sense. But what a crazy place. I saw the whitest man ever recently, and I've been warned for the last 2 weeks that I've been in Brazil not to eat the prawn skewers that the guys are selling on the beach here. And this photo, I had 2 of them, one in each hand, munching on a prawn. He's gonna have a rough few days coming up. But anyway, it's very cold in the water. I mean, I could handle it, but probably not for too long. But it's a crazy place. It's got so much business going on the beach. All sorts of Olympic knockoffs are being marched up and down the sand here. There's a booth behind me selling Wi-Fi by the hour, and there's a brilliant view of Sugarloaf Hill off to the left there, where in front of it they're deconstructing the old volleyball stadium, which was on the beach up the northern end there. So it's already coming down. The Olympics Games are on their way out, but the Paraolmypic Games are about to kick off, so that's bloody exciting. I'm very keen for that. But it's those amazing mountains that make Rio so characteristic continue into the sea and islands offshore, which I didn't know. So that's a very nice touch. And it's an absolute cracking finale to my week on my first few days in Rio. I absolutely adore this place. I'm so glad I've got 2 weeks, the longest time I've ever spent in one place to spend here, because it's got a lot to offer, and we're going to hopefully get around to as much of it as we can. And this week I'm joined for the interview by my fantastic couchsurfing host, Elvis De Silva, who's very kindly had me in his apartment in the centre of Rio for this entire week. It's been absolutely fantastic, and we spoke about all sorts of things surrounding Rio, and I've got his opinion on various topics that I'm curious about, trying to continue the theme of getting the numerous perspectives on the Olympic Games. Last week we got the perspective. This week we get the Rio citizens' perspective, and then next week hopefully one of my volunteering mates will sit down with me and have a chat about volunteering life #. So anyway, I'll let Elvis kick it off, and I'll see you at the end.
My name is Elvis. I'm from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil.
And what are you doing with yourself at the moment?
I'm a graphic designer and a web designer, and right now I work at the Rio State University, and I work by myself as a freelancer.
Awesome stuff. I'm wondering if you could take us back to what Brazil was like in 2009. What sort of things were happening in Brazil back then?
I could not be so precise, but I dare say that Brazil was in a better moment. People thought that the economy would grow, and people were very hopeful of what was going to happen to Brazil. And we had a lot of things going on that were good, and people trusted the government, and so I would say that it was, from as far as I can remember, people felt very comfortable with Brazil at that time.
So what were you up to in 2009? Were you doing the same job back then?
Yes, I was already working by myself, and actually I had quit from a job the year before, and I was working, had nothing to do with design. I was working for American Airlines, and I was a security agent.
All right.
Yeah. And but anyway, I was doing fine. Actually, 2009 was a very good year for me, because it was a year that I started taking trips that would help me in time to be where I am today. So I started
conferences and that sort of thing.
Yes, attending conferences, taking courses abroad, and getting to know people.
So do you remember the moments when Rio won the Olympic Games? Where were you? Do you remember the moment in time?
To tell you the truth, I don't remember. Was it in 2009?
It was.
Okay,
yeah,
so I
that's
really,
why
because
we took that little trip down memory lane.
To tell you the truth, I think the Olympics it's a great event, but I was not thrilled or happy, because at the time I knew Rio was not ready to take. Not because the city could not be prepared, but the way things happen in Brazil, I was kind of, are we gonna make it, or is it gonna be good for the city? And I didn't have a positive expectation at the time, so I was not really thrilled about it, I'll tell you the truth.
So what was your experience of the Rio Games last month then?
I tried to steer clear as much as possible, because what my experience was that, to tell you the truth, I was not really approving, because the current situation of the state of Rio de Janeiro and the city of Rio de Janeiro, we are about to go bankrupt,
Yes, I remember you guys requested 150 million in emergency loans just before the games to pay public servants.
And that's not only for public servants, because actually, it doesn't make sense to me to be nearly bankrupt and having the games here, because it seems to me there was no financial input from anywhere else. And as a matter of fact, when you know the story of Brazil, you feel like the Olympics was an opportunity for politicians to steal money. So, but I'm glad that everything worked out fine. There were no problems. There were very few problems, actually. So, compared to what we were expecting, and I think that people left with a good impression of the city, and most of them won't come back because it's just a once in a lifetime thing. They come for the Olympics, not for the city, and some of them will come back because they enjoy the city. Rio de Janeiro is actually a beautiful city, but it's so huge that it has many facets.
That is the correct word. Yeah,
facets
great word.
That it's impossible to see if you just come down to visit it. So
I do want to get onto just the feel of this city, because that's an incredible thing that I haven't experienced anywhere else. But I was wondering, what was the atmosphere of the city like during the games itself?
It seemed to me that it was not as bad as I thought it would be. We were expecting that there would be a lot of traffic, a lot of huge traffic jams, but it didn't feel that way. I work right beside the Maracanã Stadium, and I expected to have a hard time getting to work, but actually that never happened.
Yeah.
So on the days that there were any events at the stadium, we had a holiday, so I didn't have to go to work, so I didn't have to be concerned about the traffic or whatever. So it was not bad, I can tell you. I know, because I know there are a lot of good things that came out to the city. For example, now we have this light rail system, which is
legacy.
Yeah,
I think I've said that twice on the podcast already.
Yeah, and everybody is making jokes that this is the legacy, and it's right now. It's something that from the beginning, when they started building it, it was a good idea because it actually connected the bus terminal and the local airport, which is something that until then there was no straight connection by bus, or for example, where I live, I had to walk to the airport because it took me 20-25 minutes to get there walking, or I would try to get a cab. And I love walking, but now I have a new choice of taking the light rail. So, and it sure makes life easier. And the thing is that we hope that this legacy stays on, because in Brazil things tend to change at each new government. So whatever has been done by the previous government is undone by the next because
politics.
Yes. So I hope it stays on for a long time. I hope it keeps working, and because it's kind of useful. It's a nice ride. It takes you to important places, and right now the city center is going through a major
overhaul. It's just a nice place to be now.
Yes, and probably people. It's also some kind of gentrification.
Okay.
But at the same time, you have more choices of places to go, bars, restaurants, and etc.
I'm glad you touched on that, because I don't... Why is it that Rio has this incredible sort of tangible life to everything that happens here? Like, for example, on that one night that we went out, we saw 3 separate street parties just happening, people dancing in the road. That's what people imagine about Rio, and it was just happening around us. It was amazing. And then subsequently I've seen another 3 separate dance parties, just one in the metro, one when I was getting some bread out going shopping. Why is that?
Well, there's always something happening in Rio. You can say a lot of bad things about Rio, but the cultural life in Rio is still very strong. Yeah. And that's because Rio once was the capital of Brazil. And because of that, we have a cultural background that's very strong. And unfortunately, since the capital moved into Brasilia in the middle of the country, we lost a lot. But that spirit is not gone yet. So, and we have great landscapes, and we have lots of beautiful natural sights. You've seen there's a forest right in the middle of the city.
Yeah, that's
very inspiring. But actually, this is not something that it's it all. It's so if you go to other places, you will always get to see, because in Rio people really like to hang out. And people say that Rio is a solar city, and it's the best time.
What's the solar city mean?
A solar city, like we thrive under the sun.
Oh, right, okay.
You know, so that's.
I was like, I haven't seen any solar panels.
No, I mean the people, the Cariocas, we who were born here, and we who live here. We throughout the year, the best times is when the weather is sunny, because then I guess you've seen some sunny days here.
It was winter, and it was 31
yeah.
yesterday, so it's fine.
Sometimes it gets cold, actually, but anyway, it's not like it's so cold that you can't go out on the street. And in summer, it's very hot, but anyway, depending on where you are, even if it's 50 degrees Celsius outside, the sun is like a torch on your head.
Yeah.
You can find some place where you can cool down, hang out, and have a good time. So
where do you go to have a good time here in Rio?
I prefer I'm a day person, so I prefer to enjoy the natural sights of the city, or anything that's more as close to nature as possible in the city. So I like to go up the mountains. I like to go to the Bay Area. I hardly ever go to the beach because I'm lazy. Because I find oh my God, I gotta take the subway, I gotta take a bus, and it's gonna take like 30 minutes to get to the beach. I live right next to the bay.
Yeah.
I'm in walking distance from the bay, and despite the smell, it's a great view. There's a park right here that's amazing. It's beautiful, and where I live, I have great sights around where I live, where I have.
It's the most brilliant location. That brings me on to another thing I wanted to talk to you about. It was when did you start on couch surfing?
I started back I'm not sure if it was 2009 or 10, not precisely, because I had one couch surfer, because I attended the event, the couch surfing events, but I don't remember exactly when I started, and that's when I had my very first couch surfer. Actually, it was a guy who lived far away from where we were, and then he asked if he could sleep over. I said, "Oh, okay." So he was a local.
Yeah.
But my very first couch surfer was in 2010. He was from Colombia, and he came to Brazil to spend 3 months. Yes, and so I had the chance to host him twice when he arrived in Brazil and when he left.
Yeah, and how many guests have you had subsequently? Would you have a number of it?
I never counted.
Yeah.
I never counted, but maybe 50 or more, probably, because I've hosted quite a few people, and I never counted. I would have to
go back through the profile.
Yeah.
But there's vestiges of your couch surfing past, like a couch surfer has left quite a few items of his in your home.
Yeah, it's very fun because couch surfing is an experience that's life-changing, because and I would say that definitely it helped me be where I am today.
In what sense? Is that like mental sense?
In a life, in a life. I mean, because at the same time, for example, I've never been to Australia.
Mm-hmm.
It's a place I'd like to visit, and you are the first Australian that I ever hosted.
Oh.
And yes.
What an honor.
Yes, and so it's the chance to get to know a very little bit about that country that I'd love to visit at some point. And at the same time, there are some places that I never thought of going that now oh my God, that person was so amazing that
I was impressed with your generosity of spirit, because like you had two couch surfers at the same time, me and a guy from Turkey. And how often would a Brazilian guy get to know a guy from Turkey?
Yes, I mean, that's an example. I had this guy from Turkey, and I don't have much space, you know that. And so, and I like to have people here to host people. Unfortunately, this is a time that I'm got a lot on me, so I couldn't be a great host.
You are still very generous with your recommendations.
Yes.
Like I had tapioca for the first time tonight, and that was awesome.
Oh, great. So I try to make the most and the best that I can, and because it's amazing, it's an amazing experience for anyone who's open to it. Yeah. And because as I said, I have met people from places that probably I will never go to in my life. And couch surfing is an experience of letting the world come into your house, your home. Exactly. And that's mind-blowing at the same time that it opens your mind, because no matter what, you see different cultures right there. Even something that I really love to do is, when I have time, is to have long conversations with my guests. And every time it's an amazing experience. Sometimes I remember I had a guest for just one night. He came like I don't remember where he was from, but he was like, he arrived in the afternoon and he slept here, and then he left in the morning, but I didn't get to see him go. But it was this guy, he asked me, I really don't know, because it was very funny, because at that moment I had 4 people in my house.
Where on earth did you fit them?
Yeah, no,
the main space is
just like side
6
by
meters
side.
by 4 meters.
And there was one of these guys, he was from Norway, I guess, and he was like 2 meters tall, and he was huge. He was like, and I said, oh my God, I really don't know how it happened, but it happened. Yeah. But what I want to say is that it was so brief, but at the same time we had a conversation of like a couple hours, and I was like, oh my God, I mean, this guy was really an interesting person to meet, you know. And every couch surfer that I hosted was a unique experience. And so far, in all these 6 years, I've had no problem. I've had a few problems, but nothing major, but nothing bad actually. So, 99.9% was a positive experience.
Yeah, you're the second host I've had on the podcast. My last one, Jorge, up in Honduras. He was a fantastic host, a couchsurfing host, and guest on the podcast. So, it's certainly a particular kind of person that likes to host people from around the world, and I think you share a lot of commonality with Jorge.
I don't know, but because my friends call me crazy because they say, you open your house to strangers. But so far it's been so great, and it's been supportive because life can be hard sometimes.
Yeah.
And the experience of opening my home to strangers actually was something that in a certain level was me opening myself to the world.
Yeah.
Which now I benefit.
Certainly.
Sure.
Speaking of life's difficulties, I wonder how has Brazil's attitude towards gay people changed over the course of your life?
Well, I would say there's been a lot of changes, and I feel sometimes I envy a lot of those people who are in their 20s because they live a life that I never had. But at the same time, I lived a life that people older than me didn't have.
At all, yeah.
Yes, and I guess I'm lucky. Brazil used to be a more lenient towards gay people. I mean, soft, right? And we have a lot of prejudice. We hear a lot of hate crimes towards LGBT people. But at the same time, depending on where you live, you can have your life without concerns.
Yeah.
And I think it's harder for people who live in certain areas. But right now, what I see, which is something that I think is very bad, is like there's like a very conservative thought growing around. I can say here in Rio and in São Paulo, which is the largest city of Brazil, that people are getting very, very conservative.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how it's going to be from now on, because at the same time, what I see, for example, as I told you, I work in Rio de Janeiro State University, and there's like a group that's openly LGBT, and they are part of the university. And when you know a Brazilian university, it's not like the place that you will find there will be people supporting you.
Okay.
Like maybe in other countries in the world, that it comes naturally. It came naturally. It's this group of young people, they started getting together. I really don't know much about them, but I know they're there. And just the fact that they're there, for me, it's amazing.
We live quite close to Lapa, and last night went out for some caipirinhas, and there were some guys that were quite interested in Taha, the Turkish guy, and I. So there's just a brilliant openness. Yeah.
Yes, so it's easier nowadays. For example, I have my boyfriend, and I feel more comfortable walking on the street with him. Not everywhere, but in certain places, hand in hand, that I know I will not have a problem. But that doesn't mean that Brazil and Rio are welcoming,
on the same level, yeah.
A welcoming place to LGBT people. I mean, unless you live in certain areas, it's going to be easier. But even in these areas, It's not gonna be like paradise, but it's not gonna happen bad things.
Yeah. So where do you see the future of those of LGBTI politics going? Because your neighbours like Uruguay and Argentina have gay marriage, and it's not even on the agenda here.
No,
You've got to
we do
figure
have.
out which.
No, we
do. You
do.
have?
Yes, we're allowed to get
The guy I
married.
was speaking to yesterday was.
He was outdated. No, we can't get married in Brazil right now. That's what I fear, because we got a lot of rights, for example.
Well, you're beating Australia to the punch. We still aren't there.
Yes, and that saddens me a lot. But anyway, here, for example, me as a public servant, if I get married, my husband will have all the benefits that the partner in a heterosexual relationship will have. In many companies in Brazil, you have if you're gay, lesbian, or whatever, you have a partner. Both will share the same rights. And this is good, but at the same time, there's like a strong wave of conservatism that's growing, and I fear for the future of Brazil, because I don't want to see Brazil becoming a place like Italy in the 30s, or Germany in the 30s, when Hitler was in power, when Mussolini was in power, because it doesn't become Brazil.
Certainly.
Being a
let's
conservative.
certainly explore that space then. So it's an amazing political charge around Brazil at the moment. It's like we were out the other night. There was a Fora Tema, like a Get Out Tema protest go past us, and then there's a huge one at Copacabana yesterday as well. So do you feel like you would like to get involved in that as politics, or
I've never been. I'm just an observer, because I'm not. I was brought up in a time when this kind of attitude was de-enforced.
What's the attitude?
Is of being political, because I grew up during the military dictatorship. Mm-hmm. So this kind of being active, being political, was very like, don't do it. That's not good for you.
Yeah.
Stay put. And so that I really don't have a political agenda. I don't have a political mind. That's when. And but I try to watch as much as I can, and I see a lot of people doing things. I feel that we're not so passive. As before, and I don't know if there's going to be any change, because from my perspective, all that's happening right now, it's not something that just happened. It was planned way before. And
you're talking about the impeachment process.
Yes, I don't, because we became we were going through the last 10 years way much better than other countries in the world in terms of economy. But at the same time, a lot of things were going down, at least in Rio, because when I have the feeling nowadays that when you talk Rio, you have to talk about Rio. It's not Brazil. It's Rio and Brazil. So I really don't know what's going on in Brazil, because I don't travel around Brazil that much. But in Rio right now, we have a bad educational system. We have a bad health system, public health system. And many people might say, so what? But the thing is that I, for example, grew up in a time when both public health and educational systems were amazingly good. Like, people would not put their children in private schools even if they could afford to, because the public system was there and was amazing.
Two well done military dictatorships getting some things right. Clearly.
Yeah, but unfortunately all this is going downhill for the past 30 years. So nowadays people have a hard time learning, so, and if you have to rely on public health care, you just pray for the best to happen, because it's really bad. Recently I had if you want to have some at least fair opportunity, you really have to pay for your education since kindergarten. And you really have to have a health insurance plan.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're screwed.
Oh, well, okay. Well, let's end on a positive note then. What are the optimistic aspects that of Brazil's future?
Right now, as you've noted, you pointed before, the manifestations that are taking place right now throughout the country, that is something that I was not expecting, because we heard a lot of pro-impeachment
arguments and discourse.
Yeah, so I feel good that there's something going on that I don't believe that the former president was a good president at all, and actually she was like, excuse me, because the woman, she studied in fine schools. She came from a wealthy family, but she acted like she had poo-poo in her head. I mean, and I said, I can't believe this woman is saying that. I mean, no, someone wrote this for her, and it's not being well paid, because a president doesn't speak out of his heart. He has some people writing for them.
Yeah.
He's got a script. So so that's why I tell you, my feeling is that there was like some kind of planning to make it look bad. So when the impeachment arrived, okay, let's get rid of her. But it doesn't make sense. A lot of stuff doesn't make sense. If you live in Brazil, for example, a lot of the crisis we're going through right now, they put the blame.
The economic crisis?
Yes, it's a political crisis, okay, right, not an economical crisis. That's the trick. Even though there was an almost economic crisis, it didn't happen, and I believe it's because economically Brazil is very strong.
But he's still in recession at the moment.
You don't know what recession in Brazil. Right. It
doesn't feel like it, I must say. People are still out buying happy
paradise. I grew up when there was hyperinflation, when there was nothing in the markets. This is nothing.
Yeah. But I was talking about this yesterday, and the guy was saying, well, the recession's hit, but it hasn't yet had its effects. Like, all the investment in Brazil are on contracts, and those contracts have yet to come to an end. And once they do, that might put the brakes on things.
The major thing, that they put the blame on Petrobras for the crisis, but at the same time,
your neighbors, they're just across the road.
We're neighbors. They're just across the street, and I want that whenever there is a business going bad, it goes as bad as Petrobras, because I don't see a company that's lacking money. I don't see a company
it's
doing
certainly
that.
Not lacking money. It spent a lot of its excess money corrupting your political process.
Yes, but because it's got so much money, that even I'm not saying that this is right, okay, but it's got so much money that even politicians robbing or whoever is robbing, because I don't believe it's just the politicians. The company is not in a state of poverty, collapse.
No.
You see, and you don't see any lights turned off.
No.
You see, every Friday it seems bright and clear.
Yeah.
And it's not something that, we have to look good for others. No, everybody knows about the story that's being told that Petrobras is going down or gone down.
Yeah.
So, but I said, oh my God, I hope that my business goes down like Petrobras because it looks so good. Like whenever I have one thriving business, because it's I see that Brazil is a huge country. Huge. If you fly from Rio to anywhere, it doesn't take less than 3 hours to leave Brazil.
Yeah.
If you fly, okay, it takes days for you to go cross country. And there's a lot of places in this country that has not been touched by him. And we hear a lot of stories that the North Americans are exploring the Amazon and the Northeast and blah, blah, blah. I don't know if it's all true. But what I see is that there's a lot of energy. How it's not rechargeable. I mean, ecological, that renewable resources that the country can provide, and we're not taking advantage of it. You understand?
So is that where you see the future?
That's something, but you see a few things going on here and there, but I don't know what the powers that be want for Brazil. Because at some point I feel like Brazil is like just a huge country with no government, and whoever comes here does whatever he or she wants. And people just go on living their lives with no hopes or just expecting to have a beer on the weekend and have a barbecue party, and that's it.
It's what you can look forward to in life, the small pleasures.
Yes, but I think Brazil has a lot of human resources that could do much more. I see that working in a university. I see some amazing people, young people, and I know that most of them at some point they'll either give up or they'll go away because other places will want their skills. So Brazil, I cannot say that Brazil is a bad country at all. I love my country and I love my city, but unfortunately we have very bad politicians and they who don't care much. The problem is not Brazil, it's the government we have. Because they seem to care nothing about the people. It's like China.
It seems to me like you need to get involved and remind them of who they're accountable to.
Yes, so I don't know if I'm doing anything for it, but as much as I can.
Yeah.
And I try to be close to young people, and I've been inspired a lot throughout my life.
Yeah.
And it's amazing what a little bit of inspiration can do to anyone. How much you can, with just one touch, push that person forward to places that she never thought she could be.
Exactly.
And I've have that kind of experience myself. And as much as I can, I will do that for others who are around me.
Well, you certainly do that by providing a lovely space in your home for couch surfers.
And you are the first host
very much
to have a newly painted apartment.
I know. I felt I couldn't lean on the wall earlier. I was like, eh. Anyway, thank you very, very much for having me in your home. And,
thank you for having me interviewed.
That's all right. Cheers, man.
Cheers.
And that's it for another week. Next week, I go around exploring a few more bits of Rio, and the Paralympic Games finally kick off. And I start work as well. The first work in over 8 months. It's going to be a brutal transition, but I've got some interesting work lined up at the Paralympic Games. So I'm sure we'll make the most of it. And what a place to be working as well. It's gonna be fantastic. I'm looking forward to it so much. But anyway, if you like the show, make sure you check out the Facebook pages. That's where all the photos of this amazing time in Rio going up, capturing all sorts of things, the culture, the people. It's just everything's on offer here in Rio. It's brilliant. And if you like what you're hearing, make sure you leave a review on iTunes, as that really helps us out and climb up those the travel charts and whatnot. So I'll catch you next week for another smashing episode, and have a good one.